Thank you for joining us today for the webinar presented by Broadleaf Digital. Broadleaf Digital is a full-service Amazon agency specializing in creating holistic and tailor-made strategies to help fuel your growth on the platform. I'm excited to bring back Chris Kajander, co-founder of Broadleaf Digital, who's going to cover all you need to do to set you up for success. And throughout the presentation, if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll address them later in the call. Okay, so without further ado, please, Chris, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? Right, so today we're just going to be going through some of the Amazon basics of getting set up for success, considerations you should take into account before deciding to list and sell on Amazon, and just some general tips and best practices. And then, as Adrian said, like if you have questions, throw them in the chat, and we'll answer all of those at the end. That way, we don't get kind of bogged down on one slide. Okay, so I am the co-founder of Broadleaf Digital. We're a full-service e-commerce agency. But I've been in the CPG space for 15 plus years. I've worked on the brand side, currently run two brands as well. I think we both, Laura and I, my co-founder, who's also on the call, have a lot of experience working in retail distribution, e-commerce, and how all of those things work together. And so a lot of the clients that we work with are CPG, food and beverage brands. And so I think we have a pretty unique understanding of how these like e-commerce and retail can work together and the considerations you need for both. So, just throwing that out there, that if you have questions regarding retail and how it relates to Amazon, we can answer those as well. Okay. All right. So, understanding the Amazon ecosystem, like 50 to 60% of customers start their search on Amazon and bypass Google. It's just becoming the platform where everybody is looking for products. Over almost 8,000 products are purchased per minute on Amazon. So it's just a massive, massive platform. And in 2023, Amazon had 230 million customers. And if you think about that, it's probably every household in America, or just about. Population of the US is what, 340 mil? So, I mean, they have a lion's share of, customers. So it's a great place to be and to start selling, but that also means it's super competitive and you need to do it the right way if you are going to get on Amazon. All right, so first let's talk about some prep and some considerations. So one, like you want to understand your category and do some competitor research first. A great tool for that is Helium 10. There's some other ones, Jungle Scout, where you can kind of like get an understanding of who's selling in your category, what their price points are, just who you're going up against. And this is really important to kind of like get an understanding of how competitive that category is and what you're going to need to do to succeed. Two, you really want to have a market ready product. So yes, you can test and learn on Amazon, and a lot of brands do test on Amazon first before going into larger retail. But like you need to be retail ready. So you need to have your UPC codes, like your nutritional panels need to be correct. Like you need to have everything dialed in and be a real product and not just something slapped in a bag with a sticker. Because it won't go well on Amazon if you don't have everything set up the way it needs to be set up. And then you really need to get your brand trademark if you haven't done that. It's important. It gives you the ability to access a lot of tools on Amazon Seller Central that you wouldn't have otherwise. And it'll be important for sort of defending your brand from resellers. And it's going to be important for everything you do off of Amazon as well. So some challenges and considerations. So one, Amazon is a pay to play model. Like you're going to have to invest in advertising on Amazon, and we'll get into that a bit here in a few slides. But it's not like just throwing up a page on Amazon and expecting sales to come in. That's not how it works. Basically, Amazon has built this system where, in order to have visibility and show up in search, you have to advertise. And as you begin to advertise and build some conversion and build some sales volume, hopefully you can create a good balance between paid conversions and organic conversions. And over time, that's the goal, is to have a big group of customers that buy organically and come back to the well again and again. But especially in the beginning, you're going to need to invest. So that's something that you have to understand. To like, it's good to take a look at the your margins, your COGS, and the Amazon fee structure before you get started, and figure out if it's going to be a viable channel for you. Amazon is expensive to work with, and so it's important to understand like how this is going to affect your net margin, um, and like what it's going to take for you to actually win on the platform. So you can always go to the FBA calculator, and there you can enter in like your product dimensions, weight, price point, category, and you'll get a pretty accurate fee structure to get started. So next thing to consider is Amazon's always an evolving platform. I swear, it seems like every year they try to take a little bit more out of your margin and add new fee structures. So it's just constantly being updated. And so you have to stay on top of what the changes are and how you need to adapt as a brand. Um, Amazon requires a lot of time and attention. Again, this is not a set it and forget it type platform. I'm sure a lot of you guys use Fair. Fair is great, obviously very different. It's a B2B, but and they are launching new advertising marketing tools, ways to engage with your customer. But you also can kind of like set Fair up and like just have it run and take in orders, fulfill orders. Amazon does not work that way. It needs a lot of time and attention, especially on the advertising side, to make sure you're growing the way you want to grow. Uh, and then last, like there are some products that are just really difficult on Amazon. So meltables are one of them. It is possible. So if you have a chocolate product or something that melts, you can do FBM, which is fulfilled by merchant during the hot months, and then switch over to FBA in the cold months. But it is a challenge. There are 3PLs out there that specialize in fulfillment for Amazon meltables. I can pass those on to you if you have questions around that. Um, Glass bottles, fragile objects. It's tough to sell. Like if you, for example, if you have a tea product that's in a glass bottle and sells at $3 for a 14 ounce, it's going to be tough to make that work from a margin standpoint on Amazon. And it may be worth it for you to just still have an Amazon page and still offer fulfillment and understand that you're just going to be break even on Amazon and never really make money. There are brands that do that because they feel it's really important to have a presence, but there are certain categories that are just very difficult to make work from a profitability standpoint. Um, okay, so creating an effective Amazon listing. So first thing, you really want to have good visual assets. So you can use high quality renderings. It doesn't have to be a photograph, but your first image is going to be on white. It needs to look really nice. I mean, consumers are going off of what they see, so the visual presentation is super important. Secondarily, you're going to have a bunch of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh images. You need to consider what kind of messaging and communication you want to get across to your customer. We see lots of listings where somebody will just take a picture of the front of the pack, the side of the pack, the bottom of the pack, and it's like customers, like how informative is that? I mean, you definitely need a back of pack picture, but we find that using infographics can be really impactful, showing in-use situations, us versus them type infographics of like why your product is better than the competition, but it needs to be visually arresting and really informative and communicative. You're trying to sell your product, so like you really need to do a good job on the visual side. Uh, Also, Amazon is continuing to move towards mobile, so you want to make sure that all of your images are optimized for mobile. Um, so keyword rich copy, like there's Helium 10, which I mentioned earlier, is a platform where you can use to harvest keywords. You can also run an automatic campaign on Amazon to try to use that to back end and harvest keywords. But essentially, what you want to do is build your listings with as many high value keywords as you can without sounding like an AI like robot, or sounding like you want to keep your brand tone of voice and make it really feel authentic to who you are as a brand, but you also want to include as many high value keywords as possible. So brand registry, again, like getting your trademark registered and then building out your A plus content and your storefront are great ways to sort of showcase like who you are as a brand and provide like all of the value points and why somebody should buy your product. And then the last piece is like having good parent-child variation. So if you can see in this image here, right, this is organic bird seed, and they have all of their different flavor options built into a parent-child relationship. And so you want to do this the right way so that like your lead SKU can help kind of like um, get sales for your other SKUs that may not sell as well. I mean, it needs to make sense. It shouldn't be like two completely different products, but like let's say you have a beverage and you have four different flavors. You want to have all of those flavors listed as a parent-child variation. Um, you used to be able to combine all the reviews from the different child variants. Amazon got rid of that. So that's one of the changes that happened fairly recently is you can no longer combine reviews, which is unfortunate. But it's still you still want to have a good parent-child variation set up. Okay, marketing your products on Amazon. So advertising is absolutely a key to sales growth, as I mentioned earlier. Amazon favors sponsored listings, so like it knows when you're putting dollars into advertising, and your organic rank will improve as you advertise. And then, it's also one of the best platforms for conversion. So if you think about like when somebody goes to Amazon, they usually already have purchase intent. So you're able to get in front of them and disrupt that search and offer up your product when they're looking for something similar. So generally, the conversion rates on Amazon are much higher than Meta or Google. So keep that in mind. It is great for conversion. Amazon does take a chunk out of your margins, so you got to weigh kind of like how that works for your D2C versus Amazon business. But I think it's usually important to have both. Um, okay, so this is just very basic stuff, but like sponsored product ads are when you're getting started, usually best for conversion. So a sponsored product is like when you search for something and you'll see a little gray font above it that says sponsored. And that's the way that you sort of jump in front of search. And so if somebody's searching for peanuts and you have a peanut company, you're bidding on those keywords. Maybe you're bidding on a long tail keyword like organic peanuts in a jar. And you're able to jump to that top of search and show up as a sponsored product. And these are the ads that generally convert the best early on when you're building your brand. Sponsored brand ads. You can see here this whole sort of row. Like you get a whole row now, and they've recently switched over from static images to video. So having video is going to be super important for you as you're building your brand on Amazon. And I'll talk a little bit more about creating some of these videos in another slide. And then sponsor display. This is for retargeting generally. These are the banner ads that are showing up at the top or sidebar. And then you do want to defend your brand. Like as you start to grow, you'll see competitors start to bid on your brand so that like their products are showing up on your product pages in search. And so you do want to generally put a little bit of investment into defending your brand on Amazon. And then before you get started on advertising, it is important to just make sure your listings are optimized, what we talked about earlier. gather reviews as soon as you can. So participating in the Vine review program, which is $200 to get 30 reviews. And you do have to have brand registry and you do need to be FBA, not FBM. And then continuing to build reviews through friends, family, loyal customers. Reviews are one of the most important things on Amazon. And Amazon has really cut back or cut down on sort of fake reviews or like these review houses. So it, like getting your community behind your brand on Amazon as early as possible really helps build initial success. And then the keyword research and continuous monitoring of like which keywords are working well in advertising, that's really important because it shifts and changes over time. There may be certain keywords that are seasonal and work really well in the hot summer months, but then don't work in the fall. So it's something that you need to continuously be monitoring and working on. Okay, so a few additional sales strategies and tips. So selling on Amazon, you similar to retail, we find it best to have like a promotional, like a yearly promotional calendar and really highlight the big events that are relevant for your brand and then also the big events that are relevant for all brands. So Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and really building a strategy of how to prep and succeed for those big events. So for example, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, like you need to start getting your inventory in for that event by early September. So they haven't announced the date yet, but last year it was like you had to get your inventory inbound. I think it was by September 7th or 8th in order to like guarantee that it would be available for these big Black Friday, Cyber Monday events. So, and then during these events, the cost to advertise generally increases, but at the same time, your conversion is increasing. You need to have a good deal structure in place. Like there's just a ton of activity during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, a lot of sales. And so you want to plan for it appropriately. And similarly, if there are certain holidays of the year that are really pertinent for your brand, like you need to prep for that. You need to have the right sort of promotional plan in place. And so you should plan for Amazon promotions the way that you do in retail. It just you need to put thought into it and build out a whole calendar. Uh, Also, you want to tell your brand story. We've talked a bit about the branded storefront, A plus content. Like the more that you can tell your story in a beautiful, informative way, the better you are going to convert. Packaging inserts. This is something that, like, depending on what your product is, you might be able, if it comes in an enclosed box, you might be able to include packaging inserts that like maybe say, hey, we're a small family business, like would love to hear your thoughts, which is kind of a subtle way of saying like, hey, please give us a review. You can't come out and ask for reviews per se, but there are ways that you can message to your customers to get them to write a review. You can have links that or QR codes that go to your Instagram or have more information about your product. But inserts can be a really good way to like engage with the customer. Affiliate and off platform sales and marketing. So Amazon really rewards you for driving traffic to Amazon. So if you're working with influencers or you're working with affiliates, it can be a really powerful way to improve your sales rank and improve your sales and just show Amazon that like not only are you active on the platform, you are active off platform and driving volume to Amazon. So they reward you for that. You can actually get a brand referral bonus, and it really improves your organic ranking. And then generally, sales and marketing that you're doing in retail has a spillover effect on Amazon. PR that you're doing has a spillover effect on Amazon. And there's ways to track a lot of this activity, but it's Amazon is that place where people go if they hear about your product, or maybe they bought it somewhere and they're like, oh, I really like this. Where can I get it? Amazon's usually the first place that they go. And so, the more that you're doing off platform, the more that it translates to a spillover effect on Amazon. And then the last piece here is patience. So Amazon does take time. Like they have set up their system so it limits the amount of like reviews that you can get out of the gate. It limits sort of just you're starting from the bottom, and so they don't let you jump to the top of the category unless you're spending like $5 million on ads. Even then, it'll still take a little bit of time, and so it takes some patience and it takes doing the right things every month and continuing to grow and build. And so this is like this little graph here. This is a customer or a brand that we've been working with, and you can see like in January of 2025 they were at about 5K in sales, and I think we started working with them maybe in April or May, and it's just been a slow build, not slow, but it's been a build over time. And so now this month we should hit 50 around 50K a month in sales. So it's not like in retail where let's say you land a large retailer that has 1,000 doors and then suddenly your sales go from zero to um, $100,000 a month. Like Amazon it's a build, and it's a long-term channel that you need to invest in and build over time, and it pays dividends. Um, okay, so optimizing operations for success. Couple considerations here. So FBA versus FBM, we generally recommend FBA. You know, that's how you get the Prime badge. You get a lot. It's just allowing Amazon to do the fulfillment for you, and generally their rates are going to be cheaper than anything that you can get. It just makes things a lot easier on the advertising side, and especially on just having that Prime badge. You can get the Prime badge via FBM, but like they are super strict about your fulfillment targets, and if you are like don't fulfill an order within a certain time frame like once or twice, then you just lose it. And so and that all that to say that not every brand can be FBA. You may have a meltable item. There may be certain considerations where you need to be FBM, but if possible FBA is generally what we recommend. Managing inventory levels is really important. Like one of the worst things that you can do is build good momentum on Amazon and then go out of stock. It really kills your momentum. So we like to have about 3 months worth of inventory in Amazon for our brands. And it can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks to check inventory in. So Amazon will give you some recommendations of like what you should be sending in. You should pay attention to those based on sort of your 30-day run rate, but also you just need to be on it. And like kind of like we usually build forecasting spreadsheets, and it's really important to make sure that you stay in stock. Warehouse preparedness, like you need to make sure that your 3PL or if it's your own warehouse, that they pack and label everything the right way and that you are really on it when it comes to like making sure things are prepped the right way. It's just a huge nightmare if you ship something in and it's not done correctly. It can create a huge headache and be very costly. And then packing to minimize shipping costs and damage. Like shipping, like you really want to make sure that the way that you're shipping your product is the most space and weight efficient packaging that you can get. Like you don't want a bunch of empty air in your box because you're paying for that. Like you're being charged by the dimensions of your product. And then also on like if you have anything that could get dinged or break, you want to make sure that it's really packed well, because if it shows up damaged to customers, they're going to write a bad review and blame you. And like you can, get in there and try to mitigate the issue and have Amazon remove that review because it was a fulfillment issue as opposed to a product issue. But it's just like just make sure that your packaging is good to be shipped and bounced around, because people who are delivering your products are not necessarily careful. Like they're just going to throw it on a front porch. So just keep that in mind. Bundling to improve margins. So you'll notice, especially with a lot of food and beverage products, that instead of selling a single item, they're selling a 3 pack or a 6 pack. And that's often because they're trying to create essentially a value proposition that works for the customer and also works for their COGS and margins. And so sometimes you might see a brand that has sells a single unit almost as a loss leader, but they're really trying to push customers into a 3 pack. And you can do that through pricing strategies. I mean, there's different ways to do that, but it's definitely something to consider when you're building out your product listings. And again, you can do all of this in the FBA fee calculator. That's a good place for you to kind of figure out what your your costs are going to be. Okay. So last thing, just quick note, like AI is everywhere, obviously. And it's definitely a tool that you guys can use on Amazon for a number of things. But I would just add in some caution too. Like you want to like using AI and anything else, like you need to also be reviewing the work and making sure that it is actually the work that you want to be completed. So, for example, listing copy, oh, misspelled there. AI probably would have caught that. So, you can use AI for listing copy. That's a great place to use it for. But you also want to make sure that your copy doesn't sound like it was written by a robot or by AI. So, like, you can have them help you with it, but then you should add a human touch and make sure that like it really has your brand voice, images, and video. Like, generally, Amazon now has their own AI creator tools where you can have Amazon's AI systems create videos for you to use to really mixed results. Like you can get some real garbage from their AI generator. And you can also get some good videos and good images as well. A lot of it has to do with your inputs. And so one thing that I would recommend is like, let's say you have a product that it's a powder in a packet that you like a drink mix, like a liquid IV drink mix. If you can get good video, even if it's just quick video on your iPhone of like a hands like pouring the liquid into a cup so that and that's the footage that you use to like sort of help direct the AI and create a more compelling video with music and like with text added and like a front card and back card, like that can work well. If you're asking the AI to basically create the video from a static image of like opening the packet and pouring it into a glass of water, like you're often going to get really wild results. And so a lot of times the AI is only as good as like the content that you feed it. So just keep that in mind. And so like it is important to still get good photography and some good video content on your own if you can. And then from that you can use it to generate like additional AI content. On the advertising side, AI can be helpful. Like we use a number of tools that do automated PPC campaigns and like use AI to sort of analyze and create campaigns. But you also need somebody who's really monitoring it and making sure that it's actually doing what it's supposed to do and understanding how it's supposed to work. And also, if you're just starting out and you have limited budgets, it's harder to use sort of AI automations for your campaigns. They can help create some campaigns, but unless you have like big budgets and a lot of data to give some of these software, like AI softwares, it can be difficult for them to get good results. And they can be great for system building and reporting. So, we use AI for this, like pulling a lot of reports off of Amazon and then building them into like formats that are better, like, or more digestible for you. Like pulling some reports and building inventory forecasting tools. Like AI can be really helpful for those kinds of things as well. Okay, so I'm at that's the end of my presentation. I want to open it up for questions. Um, and, if you guys ever want to chat with Laura and I, my co-founder is on the call as well. We're always happy to chat, take a look at your Amazon listings, see if there's any way that we can help. The way we work is often on retainer with most of the brands that are our clients, but we're happy to do some stuff a la carte, or if it's just like a quick look at your page and give you some ideas on how you can improve it, we're happy to just connect with you and do that for free. So yeah, love to open it up for questions, and I hope this was informative and helpful for anyone trying to get started on Amazon.
Well, Chris, you have a lot of questions here, so I'm
Okay,
gonna
great.
start from the top. All right. So, what categories are hardest to make profitable on Amazon? And can you give us
So
detail?
yeah, so um, I think some categories that are difficult, bottled beverages that are in glass are tough. Unless you are selling like maybe like a premium non-alc, like wine or something that's at a high price point, that could work. But like, let's say you're selling a 12 pack of bottled tea in glass for, you know, 18.99. Like that's really tough. Like it's really tough to make any kind of profit or margin on that because of how much it costs to ship. Another one that's tough is like chips can be difficult. Like some of the big chip brands are all on Vendor Central, where Amazon is purchasing it. So it's not Seller Central where you're setting it up yourself. And so you can buy like bags of chips for pretty cheap on Amazon. So if you have like a bag of chips, it's like, customers are not generally going to pay $20 for a bag. Like, so you're probably going to need to do a multi-pack, but it's going to be very difficult to compete on price. And you're shipping a lot of air. So those two come to mind. Laura, what other categories would you say you've seen that have been really difficult?
Yeah, well, so for profitability, generally it's heavy and bulky products is the
Yeah.
trickiest. So supplements are a really, really competitive, challenging category. However, you have a small item that's usually fairly cheap to ship to a customer, with a high price point. So usually you can make up for your margins there with your higher price point. So I would just say things that are really heavy in general are going to be the hardest when it comes to profitability, or bulky like bags of chips and things like that.
Yeah. Things that are really heavy that customers want to pay a lower price for.
Hmm.
If it's like a really heavy item, but you're able to charge like a lot of money for it, then it can work. But if you're a food item that's really heavy, that's um yeah,
It's challenging.
it's
What
challenging.
about frozen?
Mm, yes. So for Seller Central, you can't do frozen through FBA or refrigerated. You can't do it through FBA either. So you can self-fulfill where you're going the FBM model that Chris had mentioned. We could spend a whole other 45 minutes just talking about FBM and some of the challenges there and some of the benefits there. But that's the only way you could, in theory, sell your product through Seller Central, the 3P option, frozen, as if you're shipping it yourself, which then also has, shipping frozen. You need to make sure it's like a really quick 1, 2 day shipping. You need to make sure your ice packs stay cold. Um, Again, it's not impossible, and we've definitely worked with brands that do FBM on products that need ice packs, but um, it definitely has its challenges.
Next, do ask for recommendations on 3PLs for Amazon meltables, but we could follow up separately, unless you have any initial thoughts to share.
Yeah. Just if you could send me an email. I don't have that offhand. I don't remember. Like I have a list of 3PLs. I have to go through and find the meltable one. So just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send that to you. Um, yeah.
Where do we find high valued keywords? Do the keywords need to be in the title or can they be in the listing description?
So it's weighted, and and that's one other thing I'll mention. Titles are changing too. So it was 200 character titles are now switching to 75 character titles to basically optimize for mobile. So you actually have less keywords that you can fit in your title. They are adding a highlight section of 125 characters. But basically, like Helium 10 or a program like Helium 10 is the best place to like do your keyword research before you're building your listings. And they have free versions, but really they have like sort of paid versions where you can really dig in there and like get the high value keywords for your listing.
I want to jump in on that too.
Yeah.
Do your keywords need to be in the title? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say you have your most important two or three search terms, your keywords, that those should be at the front of your title, no matter what. And things like, you know, let's say you're doing like Whole 30, or if you want to say something like great for hiking, things like that, like put that in the item highlights because that is not high value keyword at all. Like you need to put whatever the main piece is in like vegan, plant-based protein bar or something like that. Like what people are really searching should be in the beginning. And then you can also add them into the listing description. So you want to make sure, priority is title first, then
Mhm.
item highlights, then your bullet points, and then your product description. All of them should be SEO optimized, but definitely, like Chris is saying, it's weighted, and you want to go at the front. At the front of the title is like the most important number one spot, kind of.
And specifically, like where could you find those
Hmm.
keywords? There's a lot of
Yeah.
platforms out
So
there that give suggestions.
the best one I think is Helium 10, and they do have a free trial or potentially a free option where you can do some keyword sourcing there. But that's part of like at Broadleaf, that's part of like a really big chunk of what we do before anything is a listing is even created is we scrape all of the data from competitors. So let's say you have your top, like your list of top 10 competitors. We scrape all of their keyword data. We see how they're performing on those keywords, and then we will, also look at what's the search volume on certain keywords. All of that's coming from Helium 10. There's other SEO tools for sure that you can use, but Helium 10 is one of the best ones for Amazon and Walmart.
And yeah. And so as Laura said, like you're basically scraping competitive set to see like what all your competitors are doing, and then you're looking at search volumes for these keywords. Because there may be, yeah. So that's really important as well. Is like you need to have a good search volume for it to really be pertinent enough to put in your listing title or highlights.
I think we addressed this one, but I'm just going to raise it again. So even if a SKU has a different pick, still parent-child, the listing.
Uh, Yeah, so all of your SKUs will likely have different pictures, right? Because maybe it's a size variation, or maybe it's a flavor variation, or a scent variation. Um, but let's say you have a hand cream and you have four different scents to it, like rosemary, floral, lavender, whatever, all of those can be in a parent together so that when somebody lands on, let's say in the search results, they see like the lavender one, they click on it, and then they can see, oh, there's three other, scents that I could actually choose between. You want to put those all into a parent because it helps with the bounce rate also of people disappearing and looking somewhere else when they can see all of your different flavors, size variations, or whatever it might be.
And when they click on the different variation, the image will change. So
Yeah.
they'll then see the picture of, if they were on lavender and they click on rosemary, then they'll see the rosemary variation.
And do you mind just resharing what is the advantage of parent-child versus separate listings?
Chris, do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. Um, so the huge advantage used to be the consolidation of reviews, which Amazon dropped earlier this year, which really sucked. But still, so the advantage is just think of it like organizing your listings really well to make it easier for customers to shop. So if you have all of your listings standalone, customers they're more likely to have to like go back to the search results page, get sucked into another listing, or they're going back to a search results page and potentially clicking on another advertising placement. So you're paying more on your advertising placements. So when everything is consolidated into a parent, it's just an easier, more organized shopping experience with a lower potential bounce rate and a lower potential for them to get, you know, taken by a competitor listing.
If you were thinking about this in a retail perspective, it's a little bit like if you're going into a beverage cooler and
Mm,
you're a sparkling water company and you have 5 flavors, like you want all of those flavors lined up next to each other to create that brand block, but also so that customers can see like all the flavors that you have directly in front of them. You wouldn't want to have like one flavor in the cooler, one flavor on the dry shelf, and then one flavor, at a different cooler and have them all split up. Um, Ideally, you want them sort of in a block so that customers get the full like option.
mhm. And then last note on the parent-child variation is that if they're so like let's say sparkling water, but then you also have a soda product, you don't want those variated
Yeah.
together because those are different, right? So you want to clump them together based on if it's a very similar product with maybe just again flavor differences, that'll be clumped together. If they're two different, entirely different products, those will be on their own variations. So you don't want to throw everything together because then that gets a little overwhelming and messy.
How much budget is recommended to start off with since you mentioned it's pay to play? Of course, depends on the category, product, price point, etc. But what is
I,
your initial recommendation?
I mean, we say that generally we recommend starting with at least $1,000 for ad spend, ideally. And then, from there you can start to scale up and like that gives you enough budget to run some initial campaigns and kind of like see what's working and what's not working, and then figure out like what you can scale, what you can cut, and then optimize from there and like continue to sort of add a little bit more budget. Like if you're going lower than that, it just becomes really difficult because you just run out of budget so quickly a lot of times. So we generally recommend starting with a thousand. I mean, I do know some brands who will do it with like 500. And I mean, Laura, you have any thoughts on this? Like, what's your kind of like minimum?
Yeah, I mean, technical minimum, sure. You can do $500 a month if you wanted to, but then you need to set your expectations because with $500 a month, you're not going to be achieving growth. Um, so it depends on really what you're looking for. If you want to grow on Amazon and your plan is to not just kind of stay stagnant and have it up there, just to have it up there, but you truly want to grow, then $500 a month isn't really going to get you there. Um, so yeah, we like to start $1,000, $2,000. Let's just get a couple campaigns started, do some research, and then from there, generally we like to scale up as we go. So we start with your initial spend. Things are performing well. Your organic has started also improving because advertising impacts your organic growth as well. And then like every 2, 3 months, we start to increase spend a little bit. So that way you can also see that really nice gradual growth. Um, so you can start as low as you technically want, but it I think part of that depends also on what your end goal is.
Okay, I'm trying to bundle these questions so that it's a little bit consistent. Okay, so was that $1,000 a month or $1,000
Yeah,
a week? $1,000 a
a
month.
month.
A month.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And over time, what percent of your Amazon sales should you allocate to Amazon advertising?
Mm. So there's a little bit of a range there. Again, it depends on if you want to be super aggressive, but I would plan for anywhere from 15% of your sales to 25% of your sales being put back into Amazon advertising spend. Um, the lower end of that is, if you want to be a little bit more slow with everything, 15%, but if you want to be a little bit more aggressive, 20 to 25% of your revenue back into advertising.
Okay, will FBA bundle for you?
No. So
Not
they,
anymore.
yeah, yeah. They used to do some prep for you, which was really nice, but they do not anymore. So pretty much everything needs to arrive at Amazon as a ready to go sellable unit. So if your sellable unit is a 3-pack, it needs to show up already packaged as a 3-pack. There's one asterisk to that, which is a virtual bundle. Um, you will see it as an option, but it is not a good option in my opinion. Virtual bundles, essentially, they're still going to charge you the same like pick and pack fee to ship all three of those items. It looks like a 3-pack to the customer, but then it is being pulled 3 times and being charged to you 3 times. And those listings don't get the same. They don't get the same visibility that a true actual 3-pack would. So usually, like I would just skip a virtual bundle altogether and just, have it prepped in your warehouse or 3PL, however you can, and sent to Amazon.
If your product is damaged when it arrives at the customer, is that Amazon's fault?
It's tricky. So technically, you can charge a reimbursement back to Amazon for that, which we do. So there's always money that you can try to get back from Amazon on a monthly basis, which I highly recommend doing if you're already selling on Amazon. Um, and so things like arriving to the customer damaged, yes, you can request a reimbursement back from Amazon on that. Um, Amazon does not make it easy to get your money back, so it's not always a success, but technically that is on Amazon if you're FBA, not if you're FBM.
Do you recommend launching a new brand on D2C and Amazon or picking one?
So I think it depends on what your product is and what your goals are. So the advantage of, and this is just high level, broad speaking, but like the advantages of D2C are one, you can create a a much more beautiful and customized brand experience. You can really do a lot more storytelling on your own website. You can capture customer data in a way that Amazon's not going to give you the same customer data that you're going to be able to get on your own website, like building an email list, kind of like understanding who your customers are, being able to really interact with them and build a community. So, if you have a product where you really want them to come back to the well on your website, and like maybe it's a subscription business or those that can be the advantage of D2C. And also your margins a lot of times will be better. Um, the disadvantage for D2C is generally like driving that traffic and converting people is a lot more expensive. You're competing with the whole internet. And so, you have to basically, whether you're doing Google ads or Meta or whatever it may be, like that cost of conversion is usually a lot higher. And then you're driving somebody to your website and then they have to do all of that annoying stuff like put in their name and their address and put in their email. And like there's so many different points on that funnel where a customer can just drop off and say, it's just not, I don't want to do this. Whereas Amazon, because they already have everybody's information and everyone's Prime, it's like you're just a click or two away from a conversion. So like that's the main benefit of Amazon is you already have like millions of people on this platform with purchase intent, like ready to buy items. And so you getting in front of them and disrupting that search, your chance of conversion and getting that customer to buy are generally a lot higher. And you already have the customer there, like, you're not having to like pull them off the internet and drive them to your website. So it really depends on the product and like what your overall goals are and like what you think the repeat purchase rate is going to be, like what your LTV is going to be on your website versus Amazon. Like there's a lot of things to consider. Um, so most brands that we work with do some level of both. Um, and then it really, like if you want to email us separately and we can kind of take a look at your product and what you're doing, we can talk to you about like D2C versus Amazon, but there's just pros and cons to both.
Mm.
How do you think about a search strategy targeting the tail versus the most popular terms?
So you ideally want to make sure that you're covering all, right? Like you have the big broad terms and then you also have the more niche long tail keywords. But you need to like kind of understand that. So let's say the example is chips. If you are spending a lot of money on the keyword chips, that is probably going to be very expensive because everybody who is even somewhat related to a chip is going to be targeting on that keyword. And your conversion rate on that is going to be much lower because, again, you're competing against a million different types of chips. But it could be really important, and it is important for helping you grow in the category overall. So when it comes to really big, broad keywords like that, our strategy generally is yes, but let's have a really low bid. We don't want to be throwing all of our budget at that, right? Like we don't want to spend 80% of our budget on just chips. So having a really nice low bid is great because it ensures that you're still going to be shown, but you're not overspending on that keyword. It also can help improve your ROAS. And then really like starting to look through the search term report. So that one you can actually pull off of the campaign manager, the advertising on Seller Central. You can get a search term report. So really starting to see if people are searching like chips made with avocado oil or, different seasoning flavors and things like that. Those are the ones where you can really start to see a really good return on ad spend. And so those are the ones that you want to be harvesting weekly. So you are constantly going in and looking at your search term reports to find those long tail keywords to then add those into some actual manual targeting campaigns versus just kind of hoping for the best with an auto campaign.
Any recommendations to find the right people who can do creative specifically for Amazon?
Mm. Chris, do you want to speak on that one?
Um, yeah, I mean, like the creative for Amazon doesn't need to be overly complicated. It's actually less complicated than whatever you're building for your website, for example. So, like, generally for us, like, for most brands that we work with, we're able to take the creative assets that they already have, that they've used for social and for website, and like build everything that we need on Amazon with a few tweaks. And maybe they don't have an infograph, and we can either sort of suggest that they build it, and or we often will build it for them. Um, so I don't think you need to like go out and find some sort of like specific creative agency that just does Amazon stuff.
Mm.
I yeah, like that's Laura, help me out here. Is there any other like
Yeah.
I'm like trying to think
No,
if you
so
if
I don't,
you if you
sorry.
don't have so sorry, we have worked with some brands that like they're starting on Amazon first, so they didn't even build a website, and all they have is packaging, and they haven't done a single photo shoot or anything. Like in that situation, we do have some recommendations for like photographers that can just kind of get everything basic on white, or you could go like Suna can be a good resource to just get like basic images done on like a seamless backdrop, like a nice color with some level of like stylized props or things added in. Like that can be a good basic and fairly cheap option. So there are those types of tools out there that you can use if you just literally have nothing. But if you
Mhm.
already have a lot of assets that you've created for your website, then you should be able to like basically make everything that you need. You might need to adapt the sizing a bit, but you should be able to make everything you need for Amazon.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, you don't need to find an Amazon creative specific person. I think as long as it's somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes in general to design work, you're going to be good. Think of it as similar to what you would create for maybe social media advertising, where it's going to be an image, it needs to be captivating, it's going to have some text on it. But they're not creating a website from scratch or anything like that. So you can also go on Upworks and Fiverr and find some designers for super cheap. I will say with those, like it's a lot of hand holding, and their work is generally only as good as um the information that you give them. So it requires a lot more guiding on that. But there's plenty of ways that you can get your Amazon creative created.
When all else fails, there's Claude, right?
And there's Claude,
Um,
which also is a lot of hand holding. Yeah. I mean, AI also is only as good as the prompts that you give it.
Yeah.
So
And like I was saying earlier too, like with a lot of these AI tools, like if you can get good physical assets, like get good photographs or good renderings or just at least a couple good videos that are actually just made, even if it's on an iPhone, like
mhm.
having those, it's going to be a lot easier to create the AI that you want as opposed to just telling AI to do something and like not having
Mhm.
the assets to like feed into that system.
Yeah. My one thing that I would say don't do is don't just upload a bunch of pictures as your product images that are just pictures with no text or no context to them at all. Like that, you're completely leaving opportunity on the table when you do that. So you need to make sure that you're actually uploading content that is informative, like Chris was saying when we were talking about the images. So, don't just upload pictures of each side of your product and think that that's going to be a good converting listing.
there's a few specific questions here related to some of the attendees' brands, but I'm going to share
Hmm.
those offline so that you could address
Hmm.
them um, more directly. But there is a couple others. So, should you be targeting your own keywords?
Hmm. Yeah. So you should always have a small campaign that is targeting your own branded keywords for a few reasons. A, because competitors will be targeting you no matter what. Even if it's an auto campaign, Amazon will be targeting you against other competitors. So you want to make sure that you're still showing up for your own branded keywords. And like we've tested this before. So having your own branded keywords in your campaigns improves the performance overall. So we have, by request of a client, she was like, I don't want to spend any money on our own branded keywords. Please remove them from advertising. And we were like, not the best idea, but okay, let's do it. And you could see the immediate down of all performance across the board. So having those in your advertising campaigns just will always help. Always recommended. You can play with your bids so that, you ideally you're not going to be spending a ton on your own branded keywords. So it's a little bit of spend with a lot of benefits.
And yeah, I'm sure that Broadleaf would be happy to share some great examples with you.
Mhm.
So that we're pretty much at time today. But again, I want to thank Chris and Laura for bringing their insights to the table once again. Thank you to Broadleaf Digital for being such great supporters of Naturally New York. We will be sharing the recording, the presentation, and their contact information so you can follow up with them on any specific questions you may have. And coming up next, we actually have a Riverside Route, which is a live event happening in Jersey City with Whole Foods Market and Rainforest Distribution next Wednesday. We also are hosting a Shoreline Social at the Woodway Beach Club in Stamford, Connecticut on July 30th. And we have some new announcements coming up in August, but you're just going to have to wait to hear those. Thank you all so much again for joining us today. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Hi,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.